Hi everyone, Steve Seinberg here of Arrow in Flight. Thanks for joining me for another look at the week ahead in the Astro events. We like to look at what's going on up there so you can make better, more informed decisions about what to be doing down here. So I like to start these bulletins with a bit of disclaimer language. First of all, everything I say today is pitched in a kind of general sort of scope because I want to include as many people as possible in what I'm talking about. And the more specific we get, the less people that will apply to. So you really want to take the extra step of applying what I say in this video to your own individual birth chart. If you don't know how to do that, that's where professional astrologers come in, like me. So if you want to set up a personalized reading with me, I'm always available for that. You can use the contact information that you find down below this video box and get in touch. And follow me on social media and such, and stay in touch with me. The other disclaimer thing I like to say is what I'm about to discuss does not constitute every astrological event that's happening up in the sky. There's no way anyone could do that, especially not in a quick 10 to 15 minute video. So I'm just going to focus on the ones that really jumped out at me as being important. So that's our disclaimer language out of the way, so let's get into it. We have a week that's front-loaded with Mercury in Cancer energy, so we'll talk in a second about what that might mean. But that's coloring everything that happens in the first half of the week. And then we have a bit of a grab bag after Mercury kind of lets other people get a share of the spotlight toward the end of the week. And one of the big highlights will be Chiron, a very interesting planetoid going retrograde. Everybody kind of gets a little bit uneasy about retrogrades. So we'll talk about what this one will mean and why you don't have to actually just hunker down in your bomb shelter for it. You'll be fine. So here we go with Mercury in Cancer, starting a string of interesting, possibly powerful, but quick transits. That's one thing let me put up front here about Mercury. It's a very quick moving body. So any aspect that it forms with other planets, it might be powerful, but it's usually going to go by pretty quickly. Mercury takes only 88 days to go around the sun. So good and bad news. If it's a great aspect that you like, you won't be able to enjoy it for too long. But on the flip side, if it's something that feels kind of punishing, it'll be over quickly and you can get back to biz as usual. So let's look at Monday. On the 26th, we have, before we get into Mercury, before the flood of Mercury activity, we have one non-Mercury thing happening. Mars is making a trine with Neptune. And this is, I think of these kinds of aspects with those two planets in particular as spirit warrior stuff. Mars is the warrior planet. It deals with things like aggression and impulse, anger sometimes, defending things, attacking things, challenge, conflict, conquest. These are all martial kinds of concepts. And then you have Neptune, which is a very spiritual, very mystical planet. So when you put those two together, spirit warrior stuff. And it's what we call a trine aspect. The two planets are actually going to be getting along well. The energies that they symbolize, they will mix really well together pretty naturally. You shouldn't have to do too much to encourage them to work together. It should kind of happen naturally. So I would say in the realm of spiritual stuff that calls to you, this is the time to do the things that are a little bit scary, a little bit intense for you. It might work out well. Go into the dark places in your spiritual practice. Do some meditation on things that make you uneasy. I'll give you a quick example. I am a person who doesn't love heights. I don't build my life around not ever experiencing being in high places, but I don't love them. I'm not going to rush to the edge of the skyscraper to, lean way out above the sidewalk and see what it looks like down there. But I find that I can sometimes do visualization exercises in meditation where I can picture myself going to the edge of high places. I've even tried things like, imagine I'm at the edge of a mountain and I jump off with hang glider wings. What does that feel like? Gets my adrenaline going a little bit, even just talking about it now. But this is a great way to face some of your fears, martial stuff, in a spiritual Neptunian context. So this might be a terrific, let's say, week or so that this aspect will be in heavy force for you to do things like that. Bring up your spiritual uneasiness, your challenges in the mystical realm, and really face them, work on them like a warrior, and you might yield some terrific benefits for yourself. Now with that out of the way, let's look at all that Mercury and Cancer stuff I was talking about. So Mercury, as quick as it is, gets really busy sometimes, and this is one of those periods. We have, in a 3-day period, no less than 4 different aspects happening where Mercury is making these powerful connections with other planets. And so we want to look at which planets those are because they each have different bits of business that fall under their umbrellas. And we want to look at what kind of aspect Mercury is making, because that will kind of affect how it all plays out. So on Tuesday, we have a double shot. Mercury in Cancer making a square relationship with Jupiter over in Libra. And later that day makes a trine relationship with Neptune in Pisces. I know that's a lot of buzzwords to take in, a lot of astro jargon, so let me break that down a little for you. Mercury has a lot to do with our communication function. It's a few other things, but let's stick with that for, I think, this first half of this week. Communication will be heavily featured on the menu. So when Mercury links up with Jupiter, Jupiter's a planet that makes things grow and expand. That's chief among its bits of business. So you can always look for that. And we tend to, in this society, like Jupiter. We like when things grow. There's the saying that I like to bring up, bigger is better. It's not always necessarily true. Think about, because this is a square relationship where things don't merge all that well. So think about situations where maybe bigger isn't better. What if we're talking about a deficit in your budget? Your expenses have far outweighed your income. You're operating at a loss. What if that loss is growing? What if that's what Jupiter is focusing on? The deficit is growing. That ain't so good. We don't like that in this culture. So bigger is not always better. Now we're talking here not necessarily about finances this week when Mercury and Jupiter are engaging in this square thing. I like to always symbolize it by doing this. So there's a bit of a headbutting kind of feel. The two planetary energies they're not cooperating so well. So when your communication function is growing, but in ways that aren't to your benefit and are not so pleasant, what might that look like? Maybe things are being said that land harder than they need to land. They get out in the world to more people than you would like. Maybe think about this. Every now and then, someone in the world feels something that's very quick, that's of the moment, right? Say you say to your neighbor, I really don't like those shoes that you're wearing that much. They don't suit you that well. And all you mean is they still look good and you still look fabulous, but just not as amazing as usual. You're 9.9 instead of a 10. That's what you meant. But maybe it's landing much harder and much more unsuccessfully, and the person is hearing, you have terrible fashion sense, you're hopeless, I'll never hang out with you in public again. That could be the kind of thing, I'm exaggerating for a fact, but that's the kind of thing that Mercury square Jupiter could bring about. Misfires in communication with things landing much greater and much darker, unhappier impact than the speaker had intended. So kind of be on guard against that. Just understand that words always have power, but maybe even more so this week. Maybe it's like your words have gained super strength, but you don't know how to control it at the beginning of the week. So think about it in those terms. Later that day, Mercury is forming a trine with Neptune, that mystical planet that I was just talking about. So things could be a little tricky with the magnitude and intensity of your communication because of that square with Jupiter. But I would say that's probably a little bit more going to affect your communications with the outside world, with other people. Neptune, it's very spiritual. So this could be a terrific opportunity to make some use of that Jupiter, the bigness, the outsized quality of communication that you'll have because of that square, and try to dredge up some material from your own, Neptunian realms. I like to counsel people to meditate. I think it's a great practice no matter what, but I think this could be a really excellent time for trying to get some guidance and messages out of your meditation. Your dreams, I talk about that a lot too, like keep a dream journal. I tell everyone that that's a great idea, and I do think that, but especially right now, because of this combination of big communication and mystical communication, you might be getting some amazing guidance and messages out of your dreams, out of your meditation, out of synchronicity moments during the day when you probably experience the same thing I do. Every now and then something pops into your head, just unbidden, unprovoked, nothing you can pin it on. You'll suddenly think of a kid you knew in 6th grade and haven't thought of in 20 years, or a song that you liked when you were 5 and you haven't heard since then. Sometimes things pop into our head. And during these transits, especially this combination, they could have a lot of meaning for you. They might not be some random thing that you should just forget. Maybe really examine such things when they happen and see what's in it for you. What might it trigger if you kind of ponder it, and maybe even journal about it a little bit. Mercury's communication, so journaling could really bear fruit for you. So the next day, Wednesday, then we have Mercury catching up to Mars, reinforcing that trine relationship that Mars was making with Neptune at the beginning of the week that I started off with. So that spirit warrior thing is still in effect, and now we have some communication. So that day, Wednesday, I think would be a really perfect day to do one of these spirit warrior kind of visualizations. Put yourself in some challenging context. It can be an imaginary scenario, like a little kid would imagine being their favorite superhero fighting the villain that they think is the most kind of awe-inspiring. Think about that. That might be a worthy exercise. It sounds juvenile in one sense, but you can actually gain a lot of, real kind of tangible, almost courage out of doing something like that. I'll put it to you this way, try it and see how it goes. You don't have to tell anyone you did it. You don't have to tell me. You're welcome to write in and tell me about it. I'd love to hear it, but it can be a very private thing. But think about it. Challenge your bravery in some sort of spirit context, and it can be what we call imaginal or astral. You're just imagining it. It's in an imaginary space. A lot of great things have come out of the imaginary space of humanity. So think about it in those terms. Thursday, the 29th, we've got Mercury making its big final push of the week, and then it'll go and kind of take a rest on the bench, and the other players get to make some moves. But on Thursday, Mercury will be opposite Pluto. This can be fairly intense. This is a little bit like the square that I mentioned, that head-butting feel. Here it's almost like the two energies each demand equal attention at the same time, and you only have limited resources. You can only kind of pay attention to one at any given time, but you don't want to neglect either one, because that's when it will sneak up behind you and whack you in the back of the head. So you kind of want to alternate. But so what does this mean? Mercury, again, is communication. Pluto has a lot to do with deep, dark places, especially in our psyche. Pluto is named for the lord of the underworld. So I suspect that around Thursday, and maybe a day or two on either side of it while this transit's in effect, you might be subject to that kind of phenomenon of things popping in your head, like I just mentioned, but deep, dark, hidden ones. Here's an example. You're going into an important business meeting on Thursday, say, and you suddenly, right before you have to present, and you're pretty nervous, right before you have to get up in front of the whole board of directors, and your bonus this year may depend on this, and you suddenly have a flashback memory to that time when you were in middle school and you had to get up in front of the school assembly and do a presentation there, and you tripped and fell down on your face, and then you were so embarrassed while everyone laughed that you threw up all over the stage and you never lived it down and you moved to another school. Maybe you haven't thought about that in 20 years, but now it comes up at just the worst possible time. This is the kind of thing to be on guard against later in the week. Mercury opposite Pluto. Lots of deep, dark things could be popping up, and not just internally. It could be people sharing things that are inappropriate, revealing secrets. Secrets are a very Plutonian kind of concept. So there can be good things coming of it. You might be able to solve some mysteries. That's possible. Oppositions are not always bad. They're just another case of two planetary energies trying to work together. It's just they can be problematic during the opposition kind of integration process. So think about how your communication and your deep, dark stuff might combine later in the week, and just be careful around that, especially if you are the one talking about the deep, dark stuff. How much do you really want to reveal? Just be careful. So on Saturday, we kind of, there's nothing major happening on Friday. We kind of fast forward to Saturday. Mercury, like I said, sort of goes to the bench like a player that's just had a really big game, and the coach takes him and go, get yourself a rest, kid, you did great. So we're going to look at some other stuff. So on Saturday, Chiron goes retrograde. Chiron's this planetoid that has to do with wounds and healing, sort of like spiritual wounds, wounds in our soul, that kind of thing. We can be born into this world bearing these wounds already. That's kind of what Chiron represents. You want to look in your chart, your birth chart, to see which sign and which house Chiron occupies. That will tell you a lot about your own specific brand of spirit wounds. Everybody has different ones. But the point is, when Chiron goes retrograde, this will be a time when your wounds and your healing function may kind of withdraw from the world around you, and everybody else too, because Chiron's going retrograde for everyone. It becomes an internal process. You're doing a lot more of your, maybe self-wounding is the downside. You might reopen wounds, rip off scabs, that kind of unpleasant thing. But it can also be a time of great healing. You might have some opportunity to really do some effective healing that will be long-lasting. So you do want to do that step I'm talking about of looking at your birth chart. What is the nature of your spirit wound, and what can you do to maybe help with the healing process? You want to be careful to not reopen the wounds at this time. It's a possibility, but it's not necessarily a great probability. Retrogrades get a bad rap in our culture right now. I think they're not quite understood. It just means more an inner focus than an outer focus. So take a long, hard look at your spirit wounds, really analyze what they could be, and then try to work with them. Try to apply some healing salve, get out your spiritual bacitracin and put it on there and see what you can do to heal up. So same day, we have a double shot of quintile energy. If you've watched any of these videos before, you've heard me talk about the quintile. I think it's a major important aspect. Most astrologers don't think it's all that major. Some of them will brand it minor and talk about it a little. Some of them won't even be bothered. I think this is part of the magic of the quintile, though. I think it's subtle. I think it's elusive. I think it has a sort of mystical quality to it. I think unlikely things can happen when planetary energies are joined by quintiles, and they're always worth examining. So on the same day, we have two of them on the same day. That seems very quintile-ish to me right there. So we've got Venus forming a quintile with Neptune, the Sun forming a quintile with Uranus. So let's look at the first one first. Venus is all about our drive to form relationships. It's other stuff too, but if I had to boil Venus down to one word and put it in a little tiny nutshell, it would be relationships. And it's forming a quintile with Neptune, that mystical planet that we're talking about. So this could translate as us forming new layers of relationship energy with the universe itself. That's a very Neptunian thing. What is our place in the cosmos? This could be a time of evolution for our own perceptions of that and for forming new bonds with the universe in new ways. It could also be a great opportunity to get a little bit spiritual with people in your life. Venus things could be people you've known for years, it could be total strangers, but maybe this is a great time to share spiritual beliefs, a sort of spiritual outlook upon the world, and not just to be the transmitter of your beliefs, which is going to be great, but also a receiver. Be open to what other people have to say. If you were, say, not a Hindu, for instance, but you meet someone who is, get into a conversation about that. There might be some material there for you that has some real meaning. Other people's beliefs may not be yours, but you can sometimes extract some really profound kernels, at least, from a big belief system that can deliver really, really important and really enduring results that are beneficial for you. You can get a lot out of it. So this could be a fantastic time toward the end of the week to engage in some spiritual discovery and sharing. That's part of what's going to be happening here. It's going to inform your relationships. The spirit thing will inform your relationships, Venus. So then the same day, the Sun and Uranus. The Sun is all about your own identity, your life force. Uranus is the drive to individuate. So this is kind of a really interesting collaboration of your individuality, individuating, you being a unique person who's becoming more unique. Do the things that will make you feel more like the 1 in 7 billion person that you are. Do the things that maybe you've put off because you think society wouldn't like it, people would shame you, people would call you out as an imposter for doing these things. If you feel them, really truly feel them, not because doing something will annoy someone, like don't get that tattoo just to piss off your parents, that kind of thing. Do it because it expresses who you really are meant to be in this world. It's a powerful thing then. The quintile here will be a great time to do it. And you can combine them through the spiritual element and the individuation thing. What spiritual practices and beliefs will actually help you to become more the unique you that you need to be. So that's on tap for Saturday. Could be a really tremendous day. There's a lot going on. And then Sunday we close out the week, just like last week. We close out with kind of a tricky aspect that could be a little problematic. It's the planet Mars, named for the god of war, forming an opposition with the planet Pluto, named for the lord of the underworld. Opposition, as we discussed, can be kind of loaded with some dicey energy. It could be some hostility between the two energies going on here. So what we might be seeing is Plutonian deep dark stuff coming to light, but in forceful, almost violent way. That's a possibility, not to be alarmist here, but Mars can get a little bit violent, can be explosive. And Pluto is one good analogy for Pluto. Think about Darth Vader. That's a very kind of Plutonian figure. So think about if somebody like that, incredibly powerful, kind of cold-blooded, sees everything with incredibly clear perception, is turning hostile toward you or toward people around you. That's a possible description of what we might be seeing within ourselves and out in the world. So, really keep on guard against your anger, your need to, sometimes we feel almost a need to hurt those around us. That could be something you'll feel welling up within you toward the end of the week, and it might be something other people are feeling. So try to, if you can, at least Mars is working through the filter of Cancer, which is very nurturing kind of energy. So try to focus on that. How can you be almost parental toward yourself and toward your fellow humans? This opposition's happening in Cancer, the sign of the mother. Pluto's in Capricorn, the sign of the father. How can we kind of try to unite those forces consciously within ourselves and be good parents, good nurturers, good builders, people who care about what's happening in the world around us, and those that we, not just those we care about, even those we barely know or don't know, but be a good parent toward the end of the week and accept good parental energy. Stand up for yourself when you need to, but kind of err on the side of being the one on the high road. So that's the highlights of the week ahead, everyone. I hope that was helpful. And again, by all means, feel free to link up with me via social media and my website. Everything's listed down below. I will look forward to seeing you here same time next week. Thanks. Talk to you again soon.